Next team here that we need to talk about. So let's go with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're having a banner offseason. You wanted them to be aggressive, and they kind of towed the line between where it's traded for Alex Caruso, and now they've paid some of their own guys. So they declined the team option on Isaiah Joe, and Aaron Wiggins. We talked about that on this podcast. Would they do that? Would they renegotiate and extend? Basically the same difference. You'd rather work with smaller cap holds with going this route. So you 4 years, $48 million for Isaiah Joe. A steal, just average annual value of $12 million. I'm interested to see, like, are they going to front load this? I haven't seen the just exact contract numbers, and they're all kind of placeholders at this point. But like, you could front load those so that they're just going to get even cheaper down the line. 5 years and basically the same amount of money in total. 5 years, 47 for Aaron Wiggins. So I think is probably OKC's most underrated player. Maybe you could still make a case for Kenrich Williams, even though he faded. And of course, Cason Wallace is there. Can no longer make a case for Lindy Waters III. But just like, there's so much, like, he's a defensive fiend. This is someone who, like, he can hit jumpers off the catch. He can hit some complicated jumpers. He can give you rim pressure. If he's on, I don't expect him to finish this deal in OKC, in part just because between Shea and J-Dub and Cason Wallace, not that Cason Wallace is ball dominant, now Alex Caruso, I just don't know that he's ever going to have the opportunity, like, where he could really shine. This is someone who, like, if you're looking for a backcourt cornerstone of the future and you're not the Thunder, who don't necessarily need that, he has intense value to you. And so to get two of their most underrated Joe is underrated. He'd be another player that you can make a case just with his motion shooting. And he works on defense too. I don't know that everyone realizes that. And it doesn't always end well, but like, he really works. He's got this slight frame, but he works his ass off. So those two guys on ultra team friendly deals have Alex Caruso. Now you sign Isaiah Hartenstein, 3 years, $87 million, sticker shock right there, team option, or it's non-guaranteed in year 3. We have to see if there's a partial, but that is, the Knicks couldn't even, they gave him more over 3 years than the Knicks could guarantee him over 4 if they went through all the cap machinations. The Knicks apparently had it on the table. There's nothing they could do. It's different from the Bruce Brown situation in Denver last year, but the Denver had a hard max of what they could offer him because of the non-bird stuff. The Knicks had a hard max of what they could offer Isaiah Hartenstein because of the early bird, unless they had cap space, which they didn't. He's gone. I love this fit for OKC. I do think the Thunder are paying a little bit of a premium here to say, maybe you're not, I think he'll start sometimes. If he ends up being he's making a lot, so maybe they anticipate starting him all the time. Certain matchups for sure, but this felt like a premium to say, hey, you're not always going to be closing on this roster just because we have Chet Holmgren there. And it's just going to make a lot more sense to sometimes, just between Lou Dort, J-Dub, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, like, there's 3 perimeter plus Chet. That's 4 of your spots that you can argue are locked up. And there's flexibility with Lou Dort for sure, but 3 of your closing spots are locked up in J-Dub, Shea, and Chet. And some nights it's going to be like, do we need Isaiah Joe shooting? Do we need to have an Aaron Wiggins or Cason Wallace in there? Lou Dort, of course, is going to factor in. Alex Caruso is on this team, by the way. So it felt like they're paying a premium for that. And then this deal becomes non-guaranteed as you're starting to grapple with, all right, we've had to reinvest in J-Dub and Shea and Chet Holmgren. So the timing works out for them, gives you the offensive rebounding element, gives you someone where I think you match up a lot better in theory, conceptually, against Minnesota, against Denver, like some of these, like against, New Orleans doesn't have Jonas Valanciunas anymore, but just some of these like bigger, massive front courts. So love everything. That I don't think there's anything to dislike. I think the one thing you could say that you're a little uneasy about would be, it felt like they still needed someone to put defenses in rotation in the playoffs who wasn't a J-Dub or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, in part because there were limitations on what J-Dub was doing. However, this is a team, I mentioned this with, what was the team that I was just talking, the Magic. This is a team that can expect internal growth from J-Dub, from Cason Wallace, from Aaron Wiggins. Like, they just might have the answer already on the roster. And so they might have viewed that as not the need, where it's, you look at what they wanted, the physicality, the strength, the size, the rebounding. You couldn't say, okay, I don't know that big Jalen Williams is going to turn into that. Kenrich Williams is too small. You couldn't say necessarily that was already on the roster. With this, you could just say that it might just be J-Dub and Shea or enough. And like, now we just have the ancillary pieces. And is it Alex Caruso? Is it Aaron Wiggins? Those are 2 guys that can, Aaron Wiggins for sure can do it. So I feel better about them not going that route, but rumor has it they might still have some assets if they need to turn around and make a trade. But I wouldn't expect it to happen this offseason. It might just be, well, let's see. We know more about our team. Let's get information of what we are with Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso. And if we need to kind of shape shift around the trade deadline, that's exactly what we're going to do. So this is just a great offseason. And by the way, they still have the room exception floating around out there. And so if they wanted to make like another move, I don't know who that is or what player you want that to be that's left. Who's going to fall through the cracks? Who's going to be the Kelly Oubre Jr. of this, where it's like they end up signing for the minimum, or is there anyone left? It's, oh man, they were just, did DeMar DeRozan take the room exception to play with OKC? I don't actually hate the fit functionally, but it would be like an incredibly weird move. So I'm not telling them to do that if it's available. But the Thunder are, I think at this point, you should probably project them to be the best team in the West. It's between them or Minnesota. I don't know how people feel about Memphis, especially if you're going to play a rookie big and Zach Edey a ton of minutes. So I'm just trying to think of if there would be another candidate. Oh, Dallas for sure. So Dallas, OKC, Minnesota, and Denver. Those are probably the teams that are you look at and they'll jockey for the top 4 spot. OKC, I think, would be my pick right now, but Dallas has a much stronger case than I probably ever would have anticipated. Even that's after their finals run too. Not that they need me to be impressed, but I'm impressed. Let's just tackle the Knicks. We'll kind of just bounce around the other side of these. We know 5 firsts, 1 swap, plus Bojan for Mikal Bridges. That's interesting. They kept OG Anunoby 5 years, $212.5 million, player option in year 5. And then their round we're like, as I'm recording this, like they're inside $2 million of the tax after losing Hartenstein. We'll see who are they just going to bring back Precious Achiuwa? Goga Batadze's off the market. So who are they? They need another kind of big here. I do think what's interesting, the OG deal makes me a little uncomfortable, but after you traded for Mikal, you had to. And this defense could be nasty, or should be nasty, with him, with OG, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, even Dante DiVincenzo. If Deuce McBride is healthy, if Mitchell Robinson is healthy, like they have some dogs on this team. I'm wondering, and I don't know if I'm excited, but I'm pleasantly optimistic or curious if having OG and Mikal and Josh Hart, and then the undersized units that we saw in New York play independent of the center position. I want to make that clear. Does that convince Tom Thibodeau to be like, well, maybe we'll try some Julius Randle at the 5, and then you become really dynamic offensively if he's your 5. Like you could play, I don't know what your 3 needs to be, but you could bookend it with Jalen at the 1, Julius at the 5, Mikal, Josh Hart, and OG. Maybe you're a little bit worried about the spacing, but just because Josh Hart have the volume and OG and Mikal Bridges are okay shooters, but they're not like super high volume. That's 5 out though. That's like it's a minimum of 4 out, maybe 4.5 out. I don't know how you want to view Josh Smith. We've seen him let her rip and make some of them. So like I hope Tom Thibodeau is open to doing that. I almost don't want them to sign another big. Like let's just fucking push forward with Jericho Sims and Julius Randle and let's meander on here. I don't know if this was worth going all in for when we're looking at the final product. It would have made more sense if you knew you had Hartenstein. So that's a wrinkle, but you couldn't not go for it. And the 2 things I will note on this, and I noted them, Grant and I noted them, but I want to just, anyone who's new or didn't hear those thoughts, if giving up what you did for Mikal Bridges ensures one or both of these 2 things, that Jalen Brunson is either going to sign his extension 154.6 or whatever it is, when he could wait and get like 5 years and almost $270 million, that's huge. And even if it ensures he's going to take less, let's say he gets the free agency and he's just going to take 5 years and 200 or something. Like if you're getting to that point, and then if you also know that Mikal Bridges in 6 months is willing to sign the 3-year, $113 million extension, now you've cost controlled your best players to noticeably sub-max contracts, including OG in a way. That's a lot of money for OG. That makes you feel better about it, but they're not out of options. They have the Washington pick, the Detroit pick. They can include some swaps. Other picks will open up over time. They have Julius Randle's salary if they want to get really spicy. They're not out of options here, but this is like, they've kind of decided this is the team. Maybe something kind of futzing and fiddling on the margins or a little bit bigger than that, but you've decided with this trade, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Mitchell Robinson. I'm going to throw Deuce McBride in there. That's like your like top 8. And like, that's a championship caliber team. I don't know if they're championship caliber. They're certainly good enough to be the 2nd best team in the East, even after the Philly trade. But right now, I think it's clearly between those 2.